Hello and welcome to another edition of the Steelers Depot Livestream, our final Monday episode before training camp begins. Players report Wednesday, first practice is Thursday, and we're off to the races from there until hopefully February, but at least through January. So again, our final episode before camp begins. We'll do these, of course, during training camp and every other Monday as we have been. As always, I am Alex Kozora, joined by Bryan. Dave, how you doing? Thanks for being here.
Happy Monday! Getting another day closer to the start of training camp. Exciting time of year. That means the off season's pretty much almost behind us now. So should be an exciting rest of the week here.
It is, and I know you have your roster prediction up. We can talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about in the Tuesday show of the podcast as well. I'll have my roster prediction sometime this week. Actually, tomorrow it'll be up as we both talk about both our rosters, compare and contrast. If you guys could like the stream, would appreciate that. Also, subscribe to the channel, and you better be paying attention to SteelersDepot.com this week and the rest of the season because we are in full swing, back in action. So as always, Dave and I here until 8 p.m. Eastern Time answering as many of your Steelers questions as possible. So thank you guys for being here. We certainly appreciate that. Let me start here with our friend John Pennington, who says, hello, Camp Week, David and Alex. What UDFA second-year players and practice squad players are you guys excited to learn more about and draft picks in training camp? Well, I don't know if you're saying undrafted free agent and second-year players or undrafted free agents or second-year players and practice squad players. There's only one undrafted free agent from last year still hanging around. That's David Perales, the outside linebacker. Dave, that's guy I've talked about a little bit on the stream, on the podcast. He's lost some weight. Could he try to compete and potentially make a push against Jeremiah Moon for that fourth outside linebacker spot?
Yeah, he's going to be a fun guy to watch. And as you mentioned there, the weight loss this off season. I remember his college tape coming out. Real high effort guy more than anything else. I think a lot of his sacks were that I remember watching were kind of, get after it and chase down the quarterback. Not the typical like 2.8, 3.1 second sacks. I don't remember a lot of those. Not saying that he didn't have any, but look, to whoever's going to be the number 4 outside linebacker on this team this year is probably going to have to make an impact on special teams. And that's why, Jeremiah Moon, in my opinion, probably on the inside of the bubble at this point. And you would think for Perales to have a chance to get that number 4 spot, he would have to show up quite a bit on special teams during training camp and the preseason. Now, I suppose there's always the outside chance that this team could keep 5 outside linebackers in total. That would be a little uncommon, I think, overall, but not unheard of. But if there was a scenario where they did keep 5 outside linebackers in total, he would possibly be in the running for that. But I think I have him as a potential practice squad candidate as we enter camp. But as always is the case, a lot of things can happen in the next 45 days, injuries or whatnot that can really reshape certain position groups. But that's where I'm at on Perales right now.
Sure, and a lot of these battles will be determined by special teams value and performance. Perales being one of them versus Moon. Talk about second-year guys, at least second-year guys in Pittsburgh. Des Fitzpatrick, he's got a couple years in the NFL, was initially with Tennessee, but second year for the Steelers. Could he capture one of those gunner spots that are open and up for grabs? Darius Rush, his second year, on 3 teams last year. I was high on Rush coming out of South Carolina. Did not have a, probably rookie season that was in his head, getting cut by the Colts in KC, then coming to Pittsburgh midway through. Corey Trice Jr. off the ACL. That's a guy to talk about. Dylan Cook, second camp in Pittsburgh. Could he push for a swing spot? Guy that really rose up since that Friday Night Lights practice last year, made the team, stuck the whole way through. That's the guy with potential and promise. So just a couple of names there. The undrafted guys, Edwards, the running back from Georgia, interesting, kind of a just nonstop motor, annoyingly hard to tackle. Of course, Beanie Bishop in the slot corner, that's a jump ball up for a grab. So a lot of names to talk about, and we will be talking about them throughout camp. All right, Mike Adesso says, okay, guys, prediction time. Who's the first 2 guys to get into a fight at camp? Also, I think Hot Rod makes the 53 barring injury. What is his best path? What does Connor do that he can't? And Dave, speaking of which, on your 53, you have Rodney Williams making it over Michael Pruitt. Why Williams over Pruitt? And just give me a detailed layout of what is Williams' path to making this team.
Yeah, look, and that's more of, look, could Michael Pruitt end up with that spot instead of Rodney Williams? Absolutely, yes. But I think one thing that we've learned about Rodney Williams, he did not make obviously the initial 53-man roster last year, but after Pat Freiermuth went down, I think was when he got elevated up, and he remained there the rest of the season. Good on special teams. Look, if he makes this roster, that's going to be his path first and foremost. Now, this team obviously is expected to, utilize the tight end personnel groupings a little bit heavier this year. He's going to have to show in training camp that he can become a little bit better blocker, I think. Not much of a receiver overall, or pass catcher, route runner overall, even though he did play that position at, what was it, UT Martin, I think is where he was out of. Was originally a wide receiver there, but got kind of moved to the tight end position at the NFL level. What does Connor Hayward do different? Well, Connor Hayward's got really, really good hands. You can, as far as a blocker goes, obviously Connor Hayward's, shorter in stature. I thought Connor, did a well job last year of kind of doing some of the more simple things in the blocking aspect when not attached to the line of scrimmage. Stuff like the split zone where you come across the formation and either cut a guy or just have to try to put a body on him. Connor Hayward is a very good special teams player. That's going to make him a tough out in and of itself. It will be interesting to see how much, if any, Connor Hayward's in the backfield during training camp in the preseason as kind of a lead fullback, if they go down that path a little bit more with him. But at its core, I have both Connor Hayward and Rodney Williams making the 53-man roster. I have Michael Pruitt on the outside, but look, that could just as easily go the other way between Pruitt and Hot Rod Williams.
Yeah, I think it's a true coin flip. In my deconstructing the roster series, I literally gave it 50-50 in terms of odds of making the 53 for Williams and Pruitt. It's really going to be determined by camp play overall. I think in terms of what Hayward does better, you're right. Better hands, a bit more proven special teams resume. Williams has played there and saved Danny Smith's bacon last year, but Hayward has done it a little bit longer and probably more versatility, at least what Hayward's been able to show on tape. He's lined up basically everywhere. Slot, H-back, Y-off. He's done inline stuff as a true, on the line of scrimmage guy, but it's not going to be his strong suit given the lack of size there. But there's a little more you can probably do with Connor Hayward than Rodney Williams. Let's see, Mike also asking just kind of an inside baseball technical question. With the morning camp practices this year, will this change your podcast and daily camp updates pods this year? What will your schedule be? Generally speaking, we'll record the Monday, Wednesday, Friday shows the night before because I'll be leaving early in the morning for camp each day. We will record, of course, the post-camp episode after my report is filed. That'll come out sooner this year for the morning practices. The weekend practices are still in the afternoon, so that'll be kind of a normal schedule there. So there will be some changes, but we'll make it work.
It will be exhilarating 3 weeks from a work standpoint, especially for Alex, because he's got to go out there on the days that they practice out to Latrobe and then back and then get that report filed. And it does. I'm not going to lie to you folks. It does get a little stressful at times during these, during a little testy at times between maybe a few of us at times as well too. But we got a fully staffed crew and got a lot of good people, and I like to think that we're staffed up enough for this.
Oh, and to answer Mike's question about, speaking of testy, the first fight in camp, there were no fights last year. That was one of the big storylines. There was no actual really kind of skirmishes. Who's it going to be? I don't know. Probably a couple of tired and pissed off linemen, but it could be anybody.
Mason McCormick's got some nasty.
Yeah, that's a good choice. Yeah, he's going to probably take it. Who's the dancing partner do you think in this fight? With the
I don't know. I'd like
Adams?
Hoko. I would pay. I don't know if Landon Roberts might be on the field for a rep when he's out there,
Mm.
but I'd pay a good $20 price admission to maybe see those two tangle.
Yeah, I think McCormick versus somebody would be multiple people is a good answer there. Maybe Zach Frazier, wrestling background, put somebody in the ground, little quiet giant there. All right, we got Colin here for the first time, so thank you guys and everybody that has joined us
Colin.
so far. Appreciate the support. I know things will pick up a lot more once camp begins, starting Wednesday for the team, really Thursday for us going out to Latrobe. We'll be there for every single practice. They're calling for some rain Thursday, so fingers crossed that does not come true. All right, we got, let's see, Mark Cunningham says, Yo, Alex, up, Dave. What battle in the trenches are you most excited to see? I say Frazier versus Benton or Hayward. A good choice. I think Frazier and Benton would be a lot of fun. I'll say, though, Broderick Jones and Alex Highsmith. We'll assume that Jones is getting a lot more left tackle reps first team than what he received last year, running primarily second team behind Dan Moore. Highsmith, a guy that obviously has come along strongly. I want to see him work and kind of counter off that inside spin that tackles began to pick up on last year, but two talented guys going at it, Highsmith and Jones. That'll be a fun one.
No, that's a couple of good ones you just highlighted there. Zach Frazier getting, because, obviously Benton's got a year in the league now, and we expect a lot of exciting things out of him starting in training camp, and Frazier going to have a lot to prove, and those should make for some interest. That should in and of itself make for an interesting matchup. So yeah, I like the two that you chose there, Alex.
And I know obviously if and assuming that Fautanu gets first team work against TJ Watt, that'll be interesting anytime that Watt's going against the first round pick. How does he kind of welcome him? That'll be a fun test overall. So that's probably an obvious answer, but I think the Jones Highsmith one does not get discussed too much. Jeremy Nelson says, what's up, fellas? Thanks for all your hard work and keeping us up to date on the latest and greatest. Thank you, Jeremy. I'm hoping to see Cam extended, but with no contract extension, what is Cam gonna do? Hold in? A great question, Jeremy, for him, for Freiermuth, for Najee Harris. I would not be surprised if Hayward took the first week at least at a leisurely pace. He'll be there at camp, of course, but I've seen Pittsburgh sign a couple D-line when they worked one out today. Just kind of giving me a little impression that they might anticipate Hayward holding in to at least start training camp.
Yeah, I think the three to watch at the start of training camp, and I'll have first thing in the morning kind of my annual kind of early storylines of camp to kind of follow along. Several of them are probably pretty obvious at this point, but just something I like to put out every year. I think the three players to watch for potential hold-ins. Najee Harris. I mean, if I got to be honest, if I'm Najee Harris, I ain't doing jack squat.
Mm-hmm. All camp.
All camp. Really, yeah. We'll see. And look, and part of that is going to be interesting to hear his first press conference once he or first media session that he has, because he hasn't really essentially talked to anybody except I think somebody at one of the UFC fights or something like that just recently. He hasn't talked to anybody. So you got to think he's paid attention to all these running backs and getting paid around the off season and where the market currently stands, and obviously did not have his fifth year option exercised early in the off season. But I think the three to kind of watch here, maybe Pat Freiermuth, Najee Harris, and Cam Hayward, because if any extensions at all get done in the next 45 days, it's likely to be one, two, or all three of those guys there. So we'll look, even if Cam's asked to do much in the first couple of weeks of training camp, would we know it? Because you want to get a look at these younger guys on the roster. So, but in the same breath, I know Cam likes to get out there and be a leader and lead by example. So there might be some whoa instead of sick 'em, involved in that as well too. So my gut wants to tell me that Cam will do whatever Cam's kind of asked to do. I really think the one to watch here might be Najee Harris, though.
Yeah, and that could be one of those, like you kind of reference with Cam, is would we even really know it? Because
Right.
Pittsburgh's been very careful with him. I mean, you would know it, obviously, if he doesn't go through even individual work and on-air
Right.
type stuff. And so, I mean, I say that a little tongue-in-cheek, but I know Pittsburgh would be very careful with him because they were last year. Yeah, we'll see on Cam. I mean, when he's out there, he's going hard, and he gets those veteran rest days. But he's a pretty full participant in training camp overall. So very curious there, but would not be shocked if he, at least the first week or so, because the first 4 days are paddless. It's pretty much an OTA type feel. It's not a big incentive to get Hayward on the field that immediately. Kind of like OTAs, how he skipped the first 2 weeks and then just showed up for the third week. It might be something like that. Doesn't do much the first week or two. Makes that still clear he wants the extension before maybe relents midway through camp. My guess. Who knows? All right, next question comes from David Collins. Alex, huge fan. Thank you, David. Says, what would be your absolute best case scenario for the Pittsburgh quarterback room? What do you most envisioning happening as the season unfolds? To the latter, I wish I had if I had a good answer for that, I'd be bottling and selling a lot of future information there. David, I really don't know, other than to say I think Russell Wilson is going to be this team's starter, basically wire to wire, barring injury, and he's proven to be a very durable quarterback overall. Best case scenario, I mean, just one of these quarterbacks proving they can be a winner and productive and move this offense, put points on the board, and an option for 2025. I mean, ideally, because he's younger, if that somehow became Justin Fields, who worked out his issues and showed he could be the guy, hopefully for the next 5-10 years, that would be like the most magic one scenario. But even if it's Wilson, I'll take the problem of his age and paying him next year if he's is successful and is productive with this offense and they can win a playoff game. So best case scenario, just very flatly, is one of these quarterbacks shows they can be the quarterback of the present and the future.
Yeah, definitively at that too,
Mm-hmm.
and not one of those situations where you come out there, well,
Right.
it was good here, it was not so good there, and you kind of caught in the middle of a do they or don't they type situation. I think best case scenario is you come out of it with a definitive, yeah, that's the guy that we can move. One of these two guys we can move forward with and feel good about potentially next couple years, or none of them.
Let me say it a different, cleaner way. Exiting purgatory is the team's goal, where
There
they're
you
in
go.
this holding pattern. Who's the guy? Who's the answer? Not sure. It's a weird place to be. Exiting that is the best thing that could happen.
Amen.
At least, hopefully, in the sense of exiting it to something good, as opposed to both quarterbacks being terrible, and then you're kind of on the drawing board for the offseason in 2025. Got Daniel Barry here. We got Steelers Joe. We got DC. Our own David O is here. I think you're coming to camp later this year, David. I think you had said that. So we'll see you out there at Latrobe. Let's see. We got next question coming from DC. Obligatory question. The camp darling. Dave, we've discussed that some. It's hard to find the darling because it usually is somebody that nobody's talking about, hence the darling definition. Could it be a Jack Coletto, the fullback, who tries to make a push? I'm not sure. I just kind of go in wide-eyed, and the darling generally just reveals themselves to us.
Yeah, but, there's been a lot of talk about Beanie Bishop since he was signed, so I don't think he kind of really qualifies for that because of the expectations, are relatively high. I don't think, in other words, I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that nobody else has on their list,
Right.
kind of situation there. Oh, I mean, if you want to go kind of deep here, I guess, and really dig deep to, and this would be just a deep maybe guy to watch for. Deveray Hamilton, kind of a back of the end of the roster tackle, might be a fun guy to kind of. And I'm not predicting that to be the case, but if you're going to go deep, why not go real deep like that?
And any reason though on why Hamilton in particular?
I just think, he's got a little bit of cup of coffees around the NFL. I think with some practice squads, right? Isn't that what I wrote about him? We had a conversation. Giants. Yeah, had a conversation about him a couple of weeks ago while we were rolling through the 90 and 30, and obviously a lot of the talk's going to be more so about Dylan Cook. Who's kind of in the driver's seat in that situation. But on the flip side, if you get, Devery Hamilton could be one of those guys that are on the first train out, if you needed a roster spot. Trying to think of maybe another kind of Bet,
Anderson Hardy, the lineman, I've talked about some with him, athletic guy from App
yeah.
State, playing maybe some more guard, but a real good athlete for this zone-based system.
Let's see who else kind of more on the probabilities factor to kind of stick around. Jack Coletto's a good one to throw on there to kind of watch and see what happens there. Jacoby Windman, one of
Mm-hmm.
the undrafted free agents, an interesting subject. And you go back to during his college time, he played both on the outside as the edge, and then moved more to off the ball. So he's got at least some versatility now because of his size and all like that. It tends to lead to for him to play inside linebacker there. And then also, did we really get to see his kind of full potential in college or his full upside, because he was one of those ones, I think 2 years ago, that had to miss chunk of the season due to a suspension. And then I think he also had an injury in there in one of those years, first 2 or 3 games into the season, that sidelined him as well too. So, is Jacoby Windman maybe one of those guys that coming out of college that we really don't maybe have a good idea of what his full ceiling might be? So maybe that's another one to throw out there.
Yeah, that's a good pull. I know the path gets even tighter with Medikevich being signed, but just from a guy who might play well in his limited snaps, that's a solid suggestion. Want to pause here? Got a very generous $50 super chat from Chad Weiss. I'll read off what he says
Chad.
here. He says, "You guys brought happiness to my life with the Steelers Depot for over a dozen years. Here's a little token of my appreciation. Thank you. The best Steelers site the internet has ever seen." Chad, thank you so much. We are blown away by
that.
the generosity there. I know you've been on the comment section on Depot for a long time, assuming that is the same Chad that I'm thinking of in my head right now. And so we really appreciate our community, people like you, and just anyone who comments and comes to our site. I think, Dave, one of the unique things about Steelers Depot is the community section, the comment section, that has people in there that have been there for a decade, or new people, but it is, I think, a real hub in a world where people can easily just talk on Twitter, on Facebook, on groups or whatever, people coming to our site to engage and discuss. I know we try to interact and make sure that you're aware that we read the comments and we respond and get into discussions or agreements or whatever the case is. And so that's, I think, a real unique part of our site. We still kind of have that 2010 feel of like forums and message boards on our site, and that really, I think, is important.
Yeah, look, we got a great crew too that we've been able to assemble over the years, and boy, has it grown! And man, in no way, shape, or form could I do what I used to do on this side. I almost killed myself a couple of years ago.
What did you do in camp, like in the early days? When I know I was going out there, but I even forget how we handled that stuff.
Oh man, me and Matthew, and maybe whoever else was on the site at the time. I mean, it was obviously few and far between, and we just did it. And some very poor grammatical and spelling errors and poor writing overall. We just did the best that we could at the time. And obviously Matthew Marksy's played a huge role in this site over the years. He came on board, I think, a couple of months before Alex did, and obviously added Alex, and that was a huge addition. And once we got Alex in kind of in tune with the whole blogging aspect of it, which he was able to catch on very quick on it. And, we've just been fortunate over the years as the sites continue to grow, and we've had support. We've been able to add some very good key people along the way and really share the workload. So, it's a labor of love for all of us. And we've just been blessed to have some, to build a good staff along the way that's really helped power this thing. And then obviously having, a strong listenership be built over the years, and, commenters on the site, and, it all works hand in hand. So thank you for that, Chad.
Yeah, well said, Dave, and thank you again, Chad. Very, very generous. We appreciate all the support. Colin says, Freiermuth receiving touchdowns over-under is 3.5. You taking the over in this Artie Smith tight end heavy offense, Dave, on the Tuesday podcast, or Thursday. It was last Tuesday. You and Ross and Joe did some over-under predictions. Would you take over-under 3.5 scores for Pat Freiermuth?
Man, it feels like that better be over, especially because I've been one of the main ones thinking that Freiermuth's going to sign that extension this offseason, and I think the way this offense is built right now, I think Pat Freiermuth has a good chance at unless they go out and add a significant wide receiver here in the next 45 days. It really feels like Freiermuth has a shot to be the second leading pass catcher on this team. You would think that having a quarterback in Russell Wilson that should be able to get you some red zone passing touchdowns this year as well too should help play into that. So I would tend to take I would hope and I would take the over on that.
I would too, but maybe only slightly because I think in two of Frymuth's 3 seasons, he's only had 2 receiving scores. He had 7, I think, his rookie year, one of those first 2 years. I mean, it was a really productive year from the end zone perspective, but other 2 years have been 2. Now, last year he was hurt a lot, but health has been an issue. Availability has been a problem for him. And Smith's system, while it is tight end heavy, it spreads the ball around a ton, especially in the red zone. Look at some of the Atlanta Falcons teams. A lot of guys that would catch 3-4 touchdowns, not many above 5. So I still think the over because of the volume aspect of it, but I think probably 4 is a number to bet on for Freiermuth this year.
Yeah, I have 5 in my head, so we're close.
Okay. Good question, though, Colin. Halfway Conscious has a couple of questions. How is the Phil Dracovic tight end experiment going? Will Payton Wilson be able to display his physicality at camp? And can Darius Rush become a legitimate cornerback 3 who can fill in when a starter goes down? To answer the first question, Dracovic was a tryout guy in rookie minicamp. He was not signed, and so he is not on the roster right now, not currently in the NFL. So whatever little they saw over those 3 days, making that transition from quarterback at Pitt to tight end did not go well enough. Wilson, the pads will come on next Tuesday. The first 4 practices, NFL mandates they be padless, and they'll have an off day Monday and then be out there Tuesday for pads. So Wilson will get his chances for sure. And then, Dave, I'll ask you, can Rush become a legitimate top backup cornerback?
Well, first on Payton Wilson too. You got a guy that's been there throughout, obviously rookie minicamp and beyond, and deemed a very smart guy. So you would think he's been able to pick a lot of this up throughout the offseason. He should be able to hit the ground just running. And I hope I'd like to think that he's going to have a fantastic summer and preseason and be able to show his ability to find the football quickly and make plays, whatever the situation there. As far as Darius Rush, I mean, we still got we have more to learn about Darius Rush than what we know about Darius Rush at this point. And I remember going back after the Steelers picked him up last year and watching, the preseason snaps that he played, and there was more negative there than there was positive. And obviously you fast forward into the time that he got into the games last year in the limited playing time, it was more package related, if you will. So I don't know if we got to learn too terribly much about him. He's as much of a work in progress right now as I think Corey Trice Jr. is. So, he says, can Darius Rush become a legitimate cornerback 3 who can fill in? I don't have the answer. The safe answer here for what we know right now would be no, but that's not a definitive. That's just based on what we know. I think of and look, just not him. You got a lot of guys on the bottom end of that cornerback depth chart that we have to learn a lot about this summer, and he's definitely one of them. More than anything, I'd like to see Darius Rush make this roster as a guy that you can count on maybe being one of these gunners here. I think that's key for him. And then obviously, any playing time that he gets in preseason is going to be crucial on the defensive side of the football as well, too. To his credit, he was on this 53, for portions, obviously, last year and actually got into some games. So there was some level of confidence to at least get him to be able to do that. So build on that, and let's see how this summer plays out for him.
to be very literal, can he become that guy? Yeah, I think he can be. I was
Sure.
high on him out of college. As Dave says, he's got a gunner background at South Carolina, doing that basically all 4 years, even as a starter for the Gamecocks. So he can. My hope is just somebody does, whether it's him, whether it's Trice, maybe Anthony Averett, the veteran, has a great camp, or some other unknown. Kalen Barnes steps up. You just gotta have that depth behind Dante Jackson and especially Joey Porter Jr. So hopefully there's somebody that emerges. I think Rush has the talent to do so, but we just got to see more of him, as Dave said. Next question comes from John Pennington. If you guys also could like the stream, would really appreciate that to get more people into the stream. Our last one before training camp kicks off. John says, who do you guys think will win a spot on the defensive line between Leal, Lee, and Loudermilk? Dave, on your roster, who did you go with for the D-line? Let me pull it up here. You have Loudermilk and Leal.
In total.
Ooh,
yeah,
7.
I have 7 in total, and I have both, as we sit right now, Loudermilk and Leal as the bottom 2 of that. Logan Lee has got a lot to prove during training camp, and if indeed they keep 7, which is not a guarantee, that number is going to be at least 6 with the defensive line group. The question is it going to be 6 or 7? I think is the big question, and obviously a lot of those spots are already spoken for here. Logan Lee has to beat out one of Leal or Loudermilk, in my opinion, and that's if they keep 7. If this team only keeps 6 defensive linemen in total, it's going to be a tough path. He might need a little bit of help in the form of something unfortunate happening to someone else to make it. I think he's got to. I've said it right from the start, because he was one of the first players I turned the tape on in the offseason ahead of the East-West Shrine Bowl. I just felt he needs more sand in his pants. You know, got to get stronger. Got to learn how to be a little bit less robotic in all aspects, not only as a pass rusher but against the run as well too. No, he did have some good battles. I think going back a couple of years ago against Mason McCormick. I think when they played, what was it, South Dakota State there. So he is more. What my end thoughts on Logan Lee, at least ahead of training camp, is he should be a prime candidate at the very least for a practice squad spot. I'm not totally discounting him making the 53-man roster, but he's going to have to beat out Leal and Loudermilk. Now that's a low bar, technically speaking, but he's still got to do it.
Just ask quickly, why 7 and why Leal? Let's just get. I know it's a pre-camp prediction. Much can change and much will change, but what kind of gave you the thought, let's go 7 and put Leal on there?
I just, numbers. I think that's one of the position groups that you could certainly play with. And, I admit that it could be just as easily be 6 as easy as it could be 7. And I think just Leal and Loudermilk having the legs up on Logan Lee, at least ahead of camp, is why I went that direction.
Yeah, no, I get it. And hopefully the light comes on for Leal. That's been the reporting this spring, is that he kind of realizes I got to be in better shape, and this is do or die. If I don't play well this camp, I'm getting cut. I'm not on scholarship anymore as a former 3rd-round pick. So, hopefully he's able to really put that athleticism he has together and become a better pass rusher with a better go-to move and just more refined technique overall to get off of blocks. But that'll be key. If he can, then he'll make this team. If not, he'll be playing somewhere else. All right, we got Vegas TJG trade for Davante Adams. Hopefully that will lead to George Pickens becoming a more complete receiver. I don't think trading for Adams makes Pickens complete. I think Pickens' own work and dedication, not that I'm questioning it, but that just his own growth will make him a complete receiver. There could be less attention on him. Maybe that's kind of the point that you're making there. But I think Pickens can become a complete receiver with or without Davante Adams.
Yeah, and just as a sidebar there, Davante Adams is scheduled to make $16.89 million this year. I think he's got some per game roster bonuses that he can earn as well too. And man, the Raiders would take pretty decent dead money hit at this point if they were to trade him. They would have. looks like $7.85 million in dead money this year on him, and another like 15 or something, 15.6 million, something like that, I think, in dead money in 2025. And he is, what is he, 32 at this point? So of all the guys that, and there's been a few of them that people have been trying to speculate whether or not the Steelers may or may not trade for when it comes to wide receiver, I'd put Devontae Adams way at the end of the line as far as that group goes.
I would as well. And if they trade Adams, they'd also have in Las Vegas nobody to throw to for those quarterbacks who are not exactly going to be guys that will maximize and elevate others themselves. So don't see that happening overall. A couple other receiver Pickens related questions. We got Bergen in the, if they traded for Aiyuk and gave him $27 million a year, what percent would you give Pickens getting re-signed when due? If they hypothetically made that blockbuster move for Aiyuk, does that spell the end of Pickens getting a second contract, or is that door still open, Dave?
I don't know the percentage I'd put on it, but it would lower the chances significantly when it comes to Pickens. It's hard enough to fathom realistically, at least from just the organizational historical aspect and all that. Look, we've talked about historical trends of the Steelers for years, and all it takes is one new instance of it happening for the trend to go away. Trends are obviously made to be broken, but and as I've stated with the whole Aiyuk thing, the news wouldn't actually be them trading for Aiyuk. The news would be them turning around and giving him a fat contract, which would essentially make him either the top highest paid player on the team or the second highest paid player on the team. And if they did that, then you're like, aha, they broke that historical trend. Well, then the next historical trend I think that comes into play is, would they actually go out and have two wide receivers, being, let's say, within the top 10 highest paid wide receivers on the team. And obviously you think if Pickens has the kind of year that most expect him to have, he's going to put himself in a situation where he wants to get paid that big money next offseason. So I will just say that if they did go out and trade for a guy like Aiyuk, and they turn around and paid him $28 to $30 million new money average, that would significantly lower the chances of them getting a deal done with Pickens next offseason.
Yeah, I think it would, although if Pittsburgh is willing to break precedent and do that for Aiyuk, then everything we know is kind of out the window, and who knows what could ultimately happen down the road. But how would you'd have to pay Pickens more than Aiyuk, and then would Aiyuk be mad he's no longer the highest paid receiver on the team, and it's a whole kind of can of worms there. So, I mean, it's all questions to talk about down the road if those things ever, come up. But I think Dave said it would reduce those odds for sure. Chat about the super chat. We have it going through on our end, just me looking at it on the live screen. I don't have any back-end information I can pull up right now, so I think it went through. I'll be able to check out more after the live stream, so if I have an issue, I'll let you know. But as far as I can tell, it seems like it's gone through just fine, so I think we're okay, chat. All right, back to the questions here. Let's see, another receiver-related one from Fourth Down Back. Do you think adding a receiver to play wide receiver in a major role would even make sense this close to the start of this preseason? I think we are better served keeping some money if we need to pick up a vet. I think it's still worth it. I want this offense to be as successful as possible. I'm tired of below-average at best offenses. It's a missing puzzle piece for this team. They'll still have money to go add a veteran in all likelihood. So if there's a guy to get, go get him.
Even though it feels like it's not going to go down that path, I would be front row clapping if they did go down that path. It does feel like they need another significant playmaker, quote unquote, in that wide receiver room, especially if they want to make a significant run at this thing from an offensive perspective. That's where I sit.
Ashton G says, hello, who's your 53-man roster prediction? Dave has his up, and I'll pull it up here on screen right now. Mine will go up tomorrow. Josh Carney had his go up the weekend. We'll talk about it on the podcast Tuesday. So I'm not going to go through every name here. I want to save some of the conversation for Dave and myself tomorrow for the podcast.
Have no fear, I will not be 100% correct. These things, always something happens. Someone gets signed, someone gets injured. I think the exercise that's fun is it gives a lot of people things to talk about whenever you put something like this out, and B, just from a personal perspective, you try to hit as many as you possibly can. And obviously a lot of these guys on this list are going to be on a lot of people's 53-man roster. I think realistically, and as is the case every year, there could be discussions about probably 10 to 12 roster spots on this thing that, people say, well, and Alex just said, I have 7 defensive linemen. Some people will only carry 6. Some people will carry 10 offensive linemen. Some people will carry 9. What are they going to do at the tight end room? What are they going to do at the wide receiver room as far as numbers? So if you go changing the total amount of players in a position group by just one, either subtract or add, well, you're going to have another set of discussions of what position group grows or shrinks because of that there. So it's just a fun exercise that we do. And you just try to see how many that you can possibly get right. But I will guarantee everybody that the 53 that I have chosen today will not be the 53.
I will say for my prediction tomorrow, everyone will be correct. They'll be 100% right. I will call my shot. No, it's going to certainly change in so many ways. We can't even think of the ways it's probably going to change by the time final cutdowns roll around later this summer. DC, would you predict Warren getting the bulk of the snaps towards the end of the season, hopefully the playoffs? No, I think the split will be 50-50, if it even kind of shifts. I think where it was last year, about 60-40. Last year, I think it was technically 63-37 in favor of Harris. Maybe closer to 55-45, 60-40 this year. There'll be ebbs and flows in games, but I don't know if Warren's going to end up taking the lead, and especially a significant lead even late in the season.
Yeah, barring injury, that's the way where I stand as well too. Now, I guess from a total touch aspect, how close do you think if you combine?
Yeah, I mean, he says snaps. He doesn't technically say carries, so maybe I read that a little bit wrong. And Warren gets third down work, but again, the splits are going to be, I think, pretty similar to last year.
Yeah.
Mike asking about credentials. That's a whole nother kind of can of worms there. We're trying some stuff this year for camp, but generally the system we've had, I think, has worked well. We get a lot of draft stuff. We get credentials for Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, the Combine. We sent guys to this past year for the second time, I believe. So we get some of those types of things, but I think generally, at least for me in camp, I like where I'm at in camp. I can sit and take notes. It's effective. People like the system that we have, so I'm okay with kind of how things have gone so far. Let's see. David O confirms that Freiermuth had 7 touchdowns his rookie year, so I think it was 7 his rookie year, and then I believe 2 each of the past 2 seasons. He says, let's see if Arthur Smith the offense can get him some more footballs. Jennifer says, Dave and Alex, the way that the Steelers stole Jeremiah Moon from the Ravens last year, do you see him making the roster? I do, and Dave has Moon on his roster prediction as well. Not going to guarantee it, but should be at worst a quality special teamer and intriguing outside linebacker with a ton of size to bring to the roster.
Jennifer, I'll say this, going all the way back from when they made that initial claiming off waivers, I thought it was a super shrewd move on the Steelers' part. And especially when you look at his background, the defensive snaps that he's played in Baltimore and his special teams experience and all, it feels, obviously if someone was to overtake him and outplay him, they'll deserve that roster spot. But it feels like it'd be a little bit of an upset at this point if he doesn't. So, and once again, how many outside linebackers are they going to keep? 4 or 5? I have them keeping 4. And with training camp getting underway, I have Jeremiah Moon as that 4th guy. And at least, from you look at the roster at this point, and obviously TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig are going to be 3 of those guys in that room. It to me, it feels like it'd be a little bit of a letdown if Jeremiah Moon doesn't make it for whatever reason.
Could he be considered? Would it be appropriate to call him a camp darling? I know we've talked about him a lot, but I don't know if the general fan base is super familiar with him. I think he's a guy that in run sessions could look pretty impressive.
I think it depends on who you ask. For a lot of people that follow this team, closely, from the moment he was picked up. Probably know a lot more about him, obviously, than the people that kind of just start tuning back in. So I think it's in the eye of who you're asking, of whether or not he'd qualify as a camp darling or not.
Yeah, but he could impress. It would not shock me if he impressed. And if he can improve his pass rush technique, he's really unrefined in that sense. Then look out. He might have something, long term, which Jeremiah Moon. Couple questions we still have open. May wrap things up here a little bit early because it looks like the questions have kind of slowed up here. I know it's end of the off season, and next time we meet, there'll be plenty of questions to ask and answer. Let's see. Tommy Vincent, how do you guys feel about the trade rumor of Alex Highsmith and Dan Moore from Brandon Aiyuk? I would do it if I was Omar. Rumor is probably even too generous of a term for it. That's just all idle speculation. I mean, Dave, you can answer this, and we'll answer it the same way. This is all just Madden speculation. You trade Highsmith, you're taking an incredible dead money hit. You just restructured his contract right before the draft, which we thought was going to create the potential receiver trade. Dan Moore is not going to move the needle at all in terms of an Aiyuk contract. So, we could talk about throwing in a player and a hypothetical for Aiyuk. The trade hypothetical would still be revolving around draft capital, but it would not be Dan Moore, or any meaningful way to make the deal happen would not include Dan Moore, and Highsmith is a no-go for on field, but also financial reasons.
Here's what Alex Kozora put out on Twitter a couple of days ago. Physically painful to see people speculate Alex Highsmith would be traded to the 49ers in a Brandon Aiyuk deal. Kozora goes on to state, unless you love a crap ton of dead money, makes zero financial sense. They just restructured his contract 3 months ago. I quote tweeted Alex to clarify, trading Alex Highsmith would result in $22.408 million in dead cap money. $5.602 million of that would be charged in 2024. The other $16.806 million would be charged off as dead money in 2025. And I'm showing my age here, but as the old radio guy Paul Harvey used to say, and now you know the rest of the story.
And that's exactly how much a crap ton is, $22 million and change. Just quickly, how is that distribution created? Only $5 million this year and 15, 16 million the year after?
It's because you're past the June 1st point on the calendar. So anything that happens, with a player that has prorated bonus money beyond the 2024 season, which obviously Alex Highsmith does, whatever the proration amount in the current year remains in the current year, and whatever extends out from the current year all escalates into the following year, which in this case would be 2025.
Okay. I see. That makes sense. So thank you for the clarification. Again, not a moot point. It's not going to happen. And listen, I know I'm not blaming Tommy here. Obviously, people just read stuff. We don't try to talk about trade stuff too often because it always creates this firestorm of, you write about one thing and then all of a sudden people think it's actually going to happen, becomes a rumor and a storyline, and it's just too messy when it comes to trades. So, no, it's just one of those year-end, off-season end storylines, just to try to get people through the year, but nothing, no substance there, I promise you, Tommy. Colin says, with James Daniels due for a new contract next year, does he fetch more or less than what Dotson got this year, which I think Dotson was around $16 million per season? The way the cap's going and the cap continuing to increase, and Quinn Miners just got $20 million per year, 4 years, $80 million, potentially more. Daniels will still be, 27 in his prime. If he has a good season, could get more.
I think it's up to James Daniels to answer that question there. He certainly could, and you're right. Kevin Dotson's contract has a average per year of $16 million. I think he was $24 million fully guaranteed as part of that deal. So I mean, it's definitely not out of the question. If just a solid season, you would have to ask yourself though, if you got into I think it's obvious at this point, and I think James Daniels has even said on record that he doesn't expect a contract extension this offseason here. So if he plays it out and he has a fantastic year, Does this team maybe consider franchise tagging him? That tag number is going to be on up there the way some of these guards got paid this
Hmm.
this offseason. So I would tend to think possibly not, that they would just let him go ahead and walk off to free agency and hope he gets a big fat deal, so that it would add a pretty extreme compensatory draft pick value to the Steelers in losing him.
Yeah, my assumption is, and things can change, but my assumption is James Daniels will play out this year in Pittsburgh and he'll play somewhere else in 2025. I think Omar Khan has kind of hinted at that. They draft, Mason McCormick, and when Khan was asked about why draft McCormick, a third offensive lineman, he talked about you get some guys that are free agents next year, and Daniels also Nate Herbig. So I think at this point, all signs are pointing towards Daniels playing out his final year in Pittsburgh. I just don't think they want to pay that kind of money. I think the guard market got too hot for them, and they just said, we're not going to double or more than double his salary than we paid him last time, which was around, what's his average yearly value right now? 8.8 and change?
8 point something, yeah.
All right, yeah, so I think that's the angle Pittsburgh is coming from there. Let's see, DC win-loss prediction for this team, and why isn't it 12-5? I don't have one. I'll make one before the year. I think generally people will say in that 10-win range. They're good enough to me to win a playoff game and break that drought. That's kind of my stance, but it's a tough schedule, a tough AFC North. See how the team looks in camp, injuries, how that could impact things, and I'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah, DC, we got to hold some stuff off for the offseason for some suspense with you guys. And look, from where I sit right now, I think this team's got what it takes to at least get in the playoffs and win a playoff game. So
Agreed.
obviously, next 45 days, a lot can happen between now and the start of the season to make you kind of, especially if you have a lot of injuries or whatnot, or things just don't look cohesive on whatever side of the ball. But needless to say, from where I sit right now, I believe I'll have the Steelers at least a couple of games over 500.
Justin, thank you for being here. It's okay if you're late. You can see an archived and replayed version of this on the site in just a little bit. Also on the YouTube channel, you can play it back there. Tommy, all good. Herbig, the good news is he'll have an increased role this year. Should be the number 3 outside linebacker. I'm excited for Herbig. So obviously he'll be capped in terms of impact and snaps behind Watt and Highsmith, but there'll be more of a role for Herbig this year than last. Big Ben says thoughts on Payton Wilson being our starter. Out of the gate, I would doubt that, but I think, if he plays well in camp, they're going to find a role for him. He's going to be part of that, presumed 3 or 4-man rotation with Queen and Roberts. Pittsburgh really enjoyed and leaned on their rotation last year when that group was healthy, of Holcomb and Roberts and Quan Alexander. So there'll be certainly a way to get Wilson on the field to start. Probably pushing it a little too much there, but he'll play.
Yeah, he should, find some snaps, even probably potentially even right out of the chute with this team in some sort of sub-package type situation. It feels like some sort of injury might have to happen for him to start seeing considerable playing time, at least in the first half of the season. I kind of look at maybe him having a situation kind of, even though Nick Herbig is an outside guy, but, when Nick Herbig was on the field last year, you knew it, didn't you? Making some key plays in some key situations. I think first and foremost, that should be Payton Wilson's goal. Get on the field. When I'm on the field, make myself stick out on tape where everybody's got, the coaches and everybody's got to talk about me. And if you do that, usually the rest of the stuff works its way out through the wash, if you will. So, I mean, could he end up in a situation, injury or poor play by somebody else, where he gets into a situation where he's playing more significant snaps alongside, Patrick Queen later in the season? It's plausible. It is for sure plausible. Look, if there is one guy in this draft class that people should be really excited about, and look, I mean, obviously, I'm not discounting the rest of the draft class, but I mean, if you want a guy to really be excited about, I think it's Payton Wilson.
I agree. It starts with camp. I think he's going to have a really good camp overall. All the buzz on him, which is just spring stuff and draft picks, and it's going in 31 other franchises right now. But the buzz has been really positive. I think he's going to have a really strong camp and compel this team to get him on the field in some capacity, and where it goes from there, we'll see. if Cole Holcomb is healthy enough to play week 1, though, you got 4 guys. You got Roberts, Queen, Holcomb, and Wilson. I'd be very curious to see how they would handle a 4-man rotation at inside linebacker.
You know, the first note I had on him in the offseason on Payton Wilson was he can run.
Yeah. It's like time speed and game speed are equal with him. Some guys, Devin Bush ran fast, he didn't play fast. Payton Wilson ran fast, and he plays fast.
And then obviously the more you got into the tape, and look, they moved him around in that defense as well too. And his ability to handle that, rush off the edge, he's going to be asked to do less of that stuff. I think in Pittsburgh, at least initially, that he was asked to do, those last couple of seasons at NC State, and that even plays even more into his wheelhouse because there's less to have to kind of worry about, overall. So super excited with him.
Yeah, playing behind Ben, playing behind Cam that can keep him clean. Could be some interesting results there. Dave, a couple minutes left. Let's kind of fly through these few questions that just came in. Mike Adesso asking, do I think Ben will ever get into coaching or some kind of role with the team? What happened to his podcast? Ben has said he has no desire to coach anything beyond his, kids' peewee team, his podcast. I don't know, the footballing podcast. I don't know if it's going to come back during the season. There's really been no word on that. So, I don't know. Dave, any thoughts?
People change their mind as they get older. You never know. But from where I sit right now, I'd be surprised if he got into college or NFL coaching ranks or whatnot.
Vegas TJG, what happens if they go 4-13? Nothing good will come from that, obviously. The question is, A, why did that happen? Was there severe injuries? I mean, A, you're starting your quarterback search all over again, I assume. You can't go 4-13. Your quarterbacks play well. It's not going to happen. So you're back to square one on that. And from there, who the heck knows?
I mean, look what this team, it obviously wasn't good enough, all said and done. But, the fact that this team, maneuvered through this quarterback situation that they had last year, and obviously the offensive coordinator situation, and still managed to go 10-7, there better be a damn good reason.
Mike Tomlin will be this head coach in 2025, even if they go 4-13. They just extended him. They're not going to fire him if that's kind of the angle of it. A lot of changes could happen outside of that, but Tomlin will be the head coach in 2025 unless he happens to step down himself. Mike, what am I looking for personally focusing on in practices this week? I mean, to start, just kind of who's running who in terms of depth charts, first team, second team. Things are not set in stone. Things will change, but to kind of get a good base, I want to see that type of stuff, especially the first 4 practices that, again, our pad lists are not as intense and not as meaningful from an evaluation standpoint. Still watching, still learning, still commenting, and analyzing, but I kind of like to get a lay of the land to start, who's lining up where. And so when this team does make changes, I can be able to address and acknowledge that.
There you go.
Let's see. Rob, Lightfoot, Alex, and Dave, last chance. How many kickoff returns for a touchdown do we see in week 1? Rob says last time Dave and I both said 0. Is your answer still 0, Dave?
In the NFL as a whole? Is that what?
It sounds that way, yes.
How many kickoff returns for a TD do we see in week 1 from Rob? I'm assuming that's around the NFL. Oh man, I don't know. I'd still go 0.
I'll change mine. I'll change mine a little.
You can't 2. Go half.
Can't go half. I'll go 2. I still think the kickoff, the impact's not as significant as people are making it out to be. I think the averages in the touchdowns will still be about the same. You look at the XFL numbers, the European League numbers, their averages didn't have dramatically different results of like 30 yards per kick return and 12 touchdowns as a league. It did not happen. Everyone adjusted, but I'll say 2. Week 1 could be funky.
And I know we covered this on the regular podcast, but any of you listening, if you want something to look at later on tonight or next couple of days, that Sean Syed from Summer Sports, SUMER sports.com, had an article, I guess about a week ago now, exactly a week ago on July 15th, the new NFL kickoff, breaking down a season of the XFL kickoffs to see what we should expect. Is very, 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 very well put together post that if you get time, go look at that.
John, what running back might steal the show for that 3rd running back spot? Dave, if it wasn't Cordell Patterson, if our 4th running back was Cat, what running back do you think could impress?
I mean, look, a lot of eyes going to be on Dejuan Edwards out of Georgia, the undrafted rookie. You also got a couple of guys with a little bit of cup of coffee experience as well, and I think Jonathan Ward could be a dark horse if they went that route and indeed kept like four, Najee, Warren, Cordell Patterson, and then one more in that room. I think Ward would have a decent shot at that spot, maybe along with Dejon Edwards.
Yeah, I think those two make a lot of sense. Ward's versatile with experience, made the team out of a tryout and rookie minicamp. I think Edwards would be my pick. He's a little Jalen Warren light, not quite as bulky or as big, but kind of same demeanor. He's got great lateral quickness, coverage guy, pass protector, kind of did it all at Georgia. So I think Edwards will be a guy that will create some buzz in training camp. Also, Michael P. Ryan is there as another veteran type with a Super Bowl ring. David Kapoor says, AKDB forever. So thank you, David. You're here for these live streams all the time. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I think that's the final question. So we'll wrap things up. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I have some training camp. Actually, it'll be great because the team will be, 2 weeks from now, they'll be practicing. Maybe I'll have to look at the schedule if they're off or not. But either way, we should have a live stream, and Dave and I will recap what's happened in training camp so far. So, Dave, as always, thank you for being here throughout this entire offseason, and can't wait to talk some camp with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting time of the year. We're going to really get hard and heavy into it by the end of the week. Thank you, everybody who showed up tonight. Some great questions. You people are great. Thank you for the donations. Thank you. That's all I can really say. Peace and love, everybody.
Yeah, as Mike says, it's camp time, and so we'll be out there for training camp. Chat, thank you again for the generous super chat. Thank you to everyone who showed up today to ask questions, to watch the live stream. Be sure to like this live stream. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and of course, check out the site, SteelersDepot.com. It's going to be your one-stop shop for all training camp coverage. Thank you guys again.